Good evening, and welcome to the Sleep to Lore series. Tonight we journey into a landscape of desolate beauty and cosmic significance, a place that exists at the center of all possible universes. We will be exploring the lore behind Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower. This is a story that unfolds not just in one world, but in all of them, a story of a quest that spans lifetimes and realities, all converging on a single, enigmatic structure that holds everything together. If you enjoy these deep dives into the worlds of fiction, please consider subscribing to the channel or leaving a comment to help us grow. Before we begin our journey to the nexus of all worlds, I have a question for you. What is your favorite fantasy world from any book or movie, and why does it capture your imagination? Let us know in the comments below. Now settle in, and let us turn our minds to the west, to the end of the world, where in a field of blood-red roses, the Dark Tower waits. Act 1. The nature of the tower and the worlds it binds. To understand the Dark Tower, one must first try to imagine the unimaginable. Picture in your mind not just a single universe with its billions of galaxies and stars, but an infinite number of them. Universes stacked on top of each other like pages in a book that has no end. Some of these universes are nearly identical to our own, with only the smallest details changed. In one, you chose a different path to work this morning. In another, a loved one you lost is still alive. And in others, the laws of physics are completely different, giving rise to worlds of magic, monsters, and forgotten technology. Now imagine a single point that exists in all of these universes at the same time. A single fixed axis around which all of reality turns. A cosmic linchpin that holds the entire sprawling multiverse together. This is the Dark Tower. It is more than a building, more than a place. It is the center of everything. It is the needle that pins existence to the board, preventing it from fluttering away into the chaos that lies outside. All stories, all lives, all possibilities lead to it, and all things radiate out from it. It is destiny made manifest, a structure of impossible size and immeasurable importance. Visually, it is often described as a great, dark spire of grey or black stone rising miles into the sky from a desolate plain. Its peak is perpetually shrouded in storm clouds, and its true height is unknown, perhaps unknowable. Its architecture is alien and ancient, built by hands that were not human, for a purpose that transcends mortal understanding. Around its base is a vast field of roses, each one a living embodiment of the tower itself, singing a soft, psychic melody that echoes through the worlds. This field is called the Kanka no Rei, the field of the red rose, and it is here that the journey of so many ends and the final test begins. The tower is a paradox. It is a physical place one can walk to, a destination for a quest. Yet, it is also a metaphysical concept, a force of nature that stabilizes time, space, and dimension. Its health is the health of the multiverse. When the tower is strong, reality is stable. When it is weak, things begin to fall apart. The very fabric of existence begins to fray at the edges, and the darkness between the worlds begins to leak through. This is why the quest for the tower is the most important quest in all of creation. It is not a journey for treasure or for glory, but a pilgrimage to the heart of reality itself, to ensure that the center holds and that the worlds do not fall into ruin and madness. Its presence is felt even in worlds where its existence is not known. It is the subtle feeling of correctness in the world, the sense that things are as they should be. It is the unseen force that keeps time flowing in one direction, that keeps the sun rising in the east, that keeps the laws of cause and effect in place. People across 1 million different Earths and 1 billion alien planets live their entire lives under its unseen influence, never knowing that the very stability of their lives depends on a dark spire in a dying world, a world that is so far away it might as well be a dream. The pull of the tower is a force as real as gravity, though it acts upon the soul rather than the body. Those who are sensitive to it, those whose destinies are intertwined with it, feel its call across the gulfs of space and time. It is a siren song that promises answers, absolution, and an end to the journey. For some, this call is a gentle whisper, a nagging feeling that there is something more to the world than what they can see. For others, it is an undeniable, all-consuming obsession, a need that drives them to abandon everything they know and love to begin the long walk towards its dark shadow. The journey is long and fraught with peril, for the path to the tower is not a straight line. It is a winding, treacherous road that crosses through countless worlds, each with its own dangers and its own secrets. To seek the tower is to step outside the bounds of one's own reality and to become a traveler of the multiverse, a pilgrim on the greatest road there is. And to protect it is to stand guard over all of creation, to be a bastion against the endless night. This is the awesome and terrible nature of the Dark Tower, a single, solitary structure that is also the sum of everything. The tower's existence is a delicate balance between the physical and the metaphysical, a concept that can be difficult to grasp. On one hand, it is a tangible object. It has weight, mass, and dimension. It is made of stone and mortar, though the origins of these materials are a mystery lost to time. It stands on solid ground in a world known as End-World, a place that is itself a strange and desolate land. The ground around the tower is cracked and barren, littered with the strange detritus of ancient, forgotten technologies and the bones of creatures that have not walked any world for millennia. The air is thin and smells of ozone and dust and the faint, sweet scent of the roses. The sky is a strange, sickly colour, and the sun sets in the north and rises in the south. This is a world that is coming undone, a reality that has grown old and is beginning to fray. It is the last remnant of a much larger, more vibrant reality known as All-World, which was once the centre of a great civilization. Now it is little more than a graveyard, a final destination. One can, with enough will and endurance, physically walk to the tower. One can reach out and touch its cold, unyielding stone. Inside it has rooms, stairs, and doors. It is a real place, a destination at the end of a long road. But this physical aspect is only one half of its truth. It is the shell, the anchor point in one specific reality for a much grander, more abstract concept. The other half of its nature is metaphysical. The tower is the anchor for what is known as the Great Tree of Life, with the many universes being its countless branches and leaves. It is the physical manifestation of the cosmic axis, the nexus point where all realities intersect. Think of it like a pin pushed through a stack of papers. Each piece of paper is a different universe, a different world. The pin goes through all of them, holding them together in a single stack. The tower is that pin. While its physical form is rooted in End-World, its metaphysical presence extends through all of the papers, all of the realities. It is everywhere at once. Its influence is what keeps the barriers between the worlds strong. Without it, these barriers would dissolve and the different realities would bleed into one another, creating a chaotic, nonsensical mess where the laws of nature are constantly in flux. This is the horror of what lies outside of the tower's protection, a state of uncreation known as the Prim. The Prim is not a place but a state of being, or rather, non-being. It is the formless chaos that existed before the universe was born, a roiling, endless void of raw, untamed potential where nothing has a definite shape or meaning. It is pure madness, pure chaos. The tower and the structure it supports are what keep the Prim at bay. It is a dam holding back an infinite ocean of insanity. When the tower is weakened, cracks begin to form in that dam. The chaos of the Prim begins to leak through the thinning walls of reality. This can manifest in small ways at first, a feeling of dislocation, a moment of déjà vu, a trick of the light. But as the decay worsens, the effects become more pronounced. Time may loop or skip. People and objects may disappear from one world and reappear in another. Creatures from the darkest corners of imagination, things that should not exist, can slip through the cracks and find themselves in worlds not meant for them. The very laws of physics can become unreliable. This is the great fear, the ultimate threat to all life. The unmaking of existence itself, not a simple end like the death of a star, but a complete dissolution of order and meaning, a regression back to the mindless screaming chaos of the Prim. The tower, therefore, is not just a building. It is the physical and metaphysical embodiment of order, of reason, of sanity, in the face of an insane, formless void. Its continued existence is the single most important fact in the entire multiverse. The floors within the physical tower are said to correspond to different worlds or levels of reality, each with its own door leading out into a different time and place. Ascending the tower is not just a physical climb, it is a journey through the multiverse itself, a peeling back of the layers of creation. Each level holds a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of the truth about the nature of reality. The top of the tower, the room that lies at its very pinnacle, is the ultimate mystery. It is said to be the place where the threads of all destinies are woven together, the control room for all of creation. To reach it is to understand everything. This dual nature is what makes the tower so powerful and so vulnerable. Because it is a physical object, it can be attacked, its foundations can be weakened, its structure damaged. But because it is also a metaphysical concept, the damage is not merely physical. An attack on the tower is an attack on the very concept of reality. Each blow against its stone walls sends a tremor through every universe, weakening the barriers between them and allowing more of the chaos of the Prim to seep in. It is a battle being fought on two fronts simultaneously. A physical war in a dying world and a spiritual war for the soul of the entire multiverse. The fate of everything that has ever been or ever will be hangs in the balance, resting on the stability of this one solitary, dark, and impossibly ancient structure. Holding the tower in place, anchoring it to reality and giving it strength, are 6 massive conduits of energy, known as the beams. These are not beams of light in the conventional sense, though they are sometimes perceived that way by those with the sight to see them. They are more like immense rivers of force, a kind of cosmic energy that flows across the multiverse, converging at the single point where the tower stands. Imagine the tower as the hub of a great wheel and the 6 beams as the spokes that connect the hub to the rim. They are the support structure for all of existence. There are 6 beams in total, and they cross the sky of all world, glowing faintly, visible from horizon to horizon. They travel in pairs, meaning each beam has an opposite, and the two together form a single line that passes directly through the tower. Thus, there are 3 great lines of force that intersect at the tower, creating 12 points on the outer rim of the great wheel of reality. At each of these 12 points there is a portal, a gateway to another world. These portals are ancient and powerful, and they are guarded by animal totems, great and powerful entities that serve as the guardians of the beams and the portals. The first pair of beams connects the bear and the turtle. This is perhaps the most significant of all the beams, deeply woven into the lore of many worlds. At one end lies the portal of the bear, guarded by a colossal, ancient cyborg bear named Shardik. This great beast was a creation of an advanced, long-lost civilization, a marvel of technology and biological engineering. But in the long ages since its creation, it has decayed, its programming has degraded, and it has become a creature of madness and sickness, still performing its duty as a guardian, but in a destructive and chaotic way. Its body is racked with worms, its mind lost to a digital fever, and it brings death and decay to the lands around its portal. It represents technology gone wrong, a guardian that has become a monster, a symbol of the decay that is spreading throughout the worlds. At the opposite end of this beam lies the portal of the turtle, Maturin. Unlike the bear, the turtle is a being of immense wisdom, kindness, and creative power. Maturin is one of the oldest beings in existence, a cosmic entity who is said to have vomited up our universe in a fit of stomachache. It is a force for good, a representation of stability, creation, and the slow, steady rhythm of life. The turtle is a counterbalance to the bear's madness, a force of order against the forces of chaos. The health of this beam, the path between the sickened bear and the wise turtle, is critical to the stability of the multiverse. Its degradation is a sign of the deep sickness affecting all of reality. The second pair of beams connects the cat and the rat. The cat guardian, like many of the animal totems, is a being of immense power and ancient lineage. It represents independence, grace, and a certain kind of primal magic that is older than human civilization. Its portal is a place of deep woods and hidden power. On the opposite end is the rat, a creature often associated with decay, plague, and the hidden secret places of the world. The rat represents the gnawing, persistent forces of entropy that are constantly working to undermine the structures of reality. The tension between the graceful, magical cat and the persistent, destructive rat defines the nature of their beam, a constant struggle between the forces of wild magic and the slow, inevitable process of decay. The third pair of beams connects the horse and the dog. The horse is a symbol of freedom, travel, and the untamed spirit. It represents the forward momentum of life, the journey, and the quest itself. Its portal is said to open onto vast plains and open skies, worlds of endless possibility. Its opposite is the dog, a symbol of loyalty, companionship, and protection. The dog is the guardian who stays, the one who defends the home front. It represents the bonds that tie people together, the sense of duty and love that grounds a person. This beam, connecting the spirit of the journey with the spirit of loyalty and home, speaks to the central conflict within many who seek the tower. The need to keep moving forward versus the desire to protect what is loved and to have a place to belong. The fourth pair of beams connects the eagle and the lion. The eagle soars high above the world, a symbol of vision, clarity, and spiritual enlightenment. It sees the grand pattern, the big picture. Its domain is the sky, the mountains, the high places, where the air is thin and the mind is clear. It represents the pursuit of knowledge and truth. On the other end of this beam is the lion, the king of beasts. The lion is a symbol of courage, strength, and earthly power. It is the ruler of the physical world, the embodiment of leadership and raw physical prowess. The dynamic between the eagle and the lion is the dynamic between spiritual and temporal power, between the wisdom gained from a higher perspective and the strength needed to rule and survive in the material world. Their beam is the connection between heaven and earth, between thought and action. The fifth pair of beams connects the wolf and the elephant. The wolf is a creature of the pack, a symbol of community and social bonds, but also of a wild, untamed ferocity. It represents the primal instincts that still live within civilized beings. It is the hunt, the call of the wild, the law of the tooth and claw. Opposite the wolf is the elephant, a creature of immense memory, deep wisdom, and powerful, quiet strength. The elephant represents the weight of history, the importance of remembering the past, and the power that comes from patience and endurance. The beam they guard is a line of tension between the wild, instinctual present and the long, deep memory of the past. It is the struggle between the impulsive urges of the individual and the collective wisdom of the ages. The final sixth pair of beams connects the bat and the hare. The bat is a creature of the night, a symbol of darkness, secrets, and the subconscious mind. It navigates by sound, seeing what is hidden from normal sight. It represents intuition, dreams, and the acceptance of the unknown. On the other side is the hare, a creature of the day, a symbol of speed, fertility, and new beginnings. The hare is quick-witted, always alert, a trickster who relies on its cleverness to survive. It represents the conscious mind, the quick thinking needed to navigate the dangers of the world. This beam connects the world of dreams and intuition with the world of wakefulness and intellect. It is the bridge between the subconscious and the conscious, between the mysteries of the night and the clarity of the day. These 6 beams and the 12 guardians at their ends are the primary structure of the multiverse. They are the conduits through which the power of creation flows. But in the time of the last gunslinger, this intricate and beautiful structure is failing. The beams are weakening, breaking down under a relentless assault. This is not a natural process of decay. It is a deliberate act of destruction, orchestrated by a force of ultimate evil that wishes to see the tower fall and all of creation be unmade. The weakening of the beams is the great crisis of the multiverse. As they grow thinner and weaker, the worlds they support begin to drift, and the barriers between them crumble. The guardians at the portals are either dead, sick, or have gone mad, no longer able to perform their sacred duties. The path of the beam, once a source of stability, has become a road of poison and danger. The very spokes of the wheel of existence are cracking, and the entire structure is threatening to collapse. The Dark Tower does not just hold together a collection of random, disconnected universes. It binds a specific, interconnected multiverse where characters, events, and even places can cross over from one story to another. This is one of the most ambitious aspects of Stephen King's creation. The world of the Gunslinger, All-World, is the central hub, but countless other worlds are tied to it. The most important of all these connected worlds, the one reality that is a linchpin for all the others, is our own world, which is referred to in the lore as Keystone Earth. This is the world where you and I live, the world where the stories of the Dark Tower are written and read. Its importance is paramount for reasons that are both mystical and practical. In the cosmology of the Tower, Keystone Earth is the reality that anchors all other Earths. While there are infinite variations of Earth across the multiverse, ours is the prime version, the one from which many others are derived. Its stability is directly linked to the stability of the Tower in a way that is unique and critical. If Keystone Earth were to fall into chaos or be destroyed, the resulting shockwave would severely damage the entire multiversal structure, perhaps even causing the tower to collapse entirely. This is why many of the forces that seek to destroy the tower focus their efforts not on a direct assault in All-World, but on subtle, insidious attacks against Keystone Earth. They seek to corrupt our world, to spread chaos and discord, to poison its culture and its people, knowing that its decay will be reflected in the decay of the tower itself. One of the most important connections between Keystone Earth and the Dark Tower is a living, breathing manifestation of the tower in our world, a single, perfect rose growing in a vacant lot in New York City. This rose is not just a plant, It is the twin of the Dark Tower, its spiritual echo in the Keystone reality. Its health and safety are directly proportional to the health of the tower. If the rose is healthy and thriving, the tower is strong. If the rose wilts or is harmed, the tower weakens. This small, beautiful and fragile thing in the heart of a bustling city is one of the most important objects in all of creation. Protecting this rose becomes a crucial part of the quest, a battle that must be fought not with guns and magic in a fantasy world, but with lawyers, real estate deals, and corporate maneuvering in our own modern world. The multiverse connected by the tower includes the settings of many of Stephen King's other famous novels and stories. The town of Derry, Maine, where a cosmic entity in the form of a clown preys on children, exists in a world connected to the tower. In fact, the entity itself, it, is revealed to be a creature from the Prim, the chaos outside the tower, and its ancient enemy is the turtle, the very same guardian of one of the beams. The post-apocalyptic world of the Stand, devastated by a superflu and locked in a struggle between good and evil, is another branch on the great tree of worlds. Its primary antagonist, Randall Flagg, is the same being as the Man in Black, the primary antagonist of the Dark Tower series, an evil sorcerer who travels between the worlds, spreading chaos and serving a darker master. A disgraced priest from a town called Salem's Lot, who finds his faith shattered after a battle with vampires, can find himself inexplicably transported to the world of the Gunslingers, forced to continue his journey on the path to the tower. These connections are not mere Easter eggs or fun references, they are fundamental to the lore. They illustrate that the struggles and stories happening in all these different worlds are all part of the same, single, overarching narrative. The battle for the Dark Tower. The heroes and villains of one story may have a role to play in the larger cosmic drama. The events of a small town in Maine can have repercussions that echo across the entire multiverse. This interconnectedness creates a vast and intricate tapestry of stories. It suggests that all acts of good, no matter how small, help to strengthen the tower, while all acts of evil and chaos work to weaken it. The fate of reality is not decided by a single hero in a single quest, but by the sum total of all the stories, all the choices made by people across all the worlds. Every story matters. The concept of Ka, a central theme in the Dark Tower series, is the word in the high speech for destiny or fate. It is the idea that lives are woven together for a purpose, that meetings are not accidental, and that the path one walks has been laid out by the will of the tower itself. The multiverse is a web of Ka, where the threads of different lives and different worlds cross and connect in meaningful ways. Characters are drawn from their own worlds, from their own stories, and pulled into the central quest for the tower because Ka has willed it. A boy from New York City, a former drug addict from the 1980s, a civil rights activist from the 1960s, can all be brought together with the last gunslinger from a dying world because their destinies are intertwined and they have a role to play in saving the nexus of all worlds. This grand, unified multiverse makes the stakes of the story incredibly high. It is not just one world that is in danger, but all of them. The fall of the tower would not just mean the end of all world, but the unmaking of Derry, of the world of the Stand, of our own Keystone Earth, and of every other world that has ever been imagined. Everything is connected, and everything is on the line. In the ancient days of all world, before the world moved on and the great civilizations fell into ruin, there was a language of immense power and beauty known as the high speech. This was not merely a way of communicating, it was the language of creation itself, a tongue that was closer to the true nature of reality. To speak it was to touch upon the fundamental forces that bind the multiverse together. The high speech is the original language from which all other human languages are derived and corrupted forms. It is described as being both formal and poetic, with a rhythm and cadence that can be mesmerizing to hear. It is the language of ceremony, of epic poetry, and of true names. In this ancient tongue, things are called by their essential nature. It is a language without deception, for to speak in the high speech is to speak the truth of a thing. This language was spoken by the Old Ones, the great civilization that built the beams and their guardians, and it was the native tongue of the Order of Gunslingers, the knights sworn to protect the world that was. In the time of Roland Deschain, the last gunslinger, the high speech is almost entirely forgotten. It exists only in fragments, in old sayings, poems, and the formal rituals of the gunslingers. To hear it spoken is a rare and often profound experience, a voice from a lost and grander age. The very words of the high speech carry power. Certain phrases can have a real, tangible effect on the world. It is the language of magic, the words used in spells and incantations that can bend reality to the will of the speaker. This is because the language is in tune with the tower. It resonates with the fundamental harmony of existence. When spoken correctly, it is not just sound, it is an act of shaping the world, of reinforcing or altering the patterns of destiny. One of the most important concepts in the high speech and in the entire law is the word ka. As mentioned, it translates roughly to destiny or fate, but its meaning is much deeper and more complex. Ka is the will of the tower. It is the force that guides the universe, ensuring that what is meant to be will be. It is not a force for good or evil, but simply a force of purpose. A group of people brought together by destiny to fulfill a single purpose is called a quartet. They are a group of beings whose fates are so deeply intertwined that they function as a single entity, their individual lives serving the greater purpose of the group. The bonds of a quartet are stronger than friendship or family. They are a bond of shared destiny woven at the very foundation of reality. Understanding and speaking the high speech is to understand the flow of Ka. It allows one to see the patterns in the world, to recognize the hand of destiny at work. For a gunslinger, proficiency in the high speech was as important a skill as proficiency with a revolver. It was a tool for understanding the world, for navigating the treacherous currents of fate, and for asserting one's will in a universe governed by cosmic forces. The decay of the world is mirrored in the decay of its language. As all world has crumbled and the beams have weakened, the high speech has been forgotten, replaced by the low speech, a simpler, cruder form of communication. The low speech is the language of everyday life, of commerce, and of survival in a broken world. It lacks the power and the poetry of its ancestor. It is a language of a world that has lost its magic and its connection to the center of all things. The loss of the high speech is a profound tragedy. It represents the loss of knowledge, the loss of culture, and the loss of a deep spiritual connection to the nature of the universe. It is another symptom of the great sickness that plagues the multiverse, another sign that the world has moved on, leaving behind only the echoes and fragments of its former glory. Yet these fragments remain powerful. Old sayings spoken in the high speech still carry weight and wisdom. The names of ancient places still hum with a forgotten power. And for those few who still remember the old tongue, it remains a potent weapon, a connection to the fading magic of a world that is desperately in need of heroes who can speak its true and powerful name. Act 2. The Protectors and the Seekers of the Tower. In the long ago days when the world had not yet moved on, there was an order of knights who stood for more than just a king or a country. They were the protectors of the white, the force of order and creation in the universe. They were the keepers of the peace in a civilization that spanned a continent, a society known as the In-World. They were the Gunslingers. To think of them as mere cowboys with quick reflexes would be a profound misunderstanding of their nature and their purpose. They were the descendants of a line that stretched back into the mists of time, a lineage said to have been founded by the great Arthur Eld, the king of a legendary unified all-world, a figure analogous to the King Arthur of our own world's myths. The Gunslingers were his knights, and their swords were their revolvers, weapons forged from the melted steel of Arthur's own mythical blade Excalibur. This lineage was everything to them. It was a source of immense pride, but also a crushing burden of responsibility. They were bred for their role, their bloodlines carefully managed over centuries to produce individuals with the necessary speed, sight, and character to uphold their sacred duty. From the moment they were born, they were set on a path of relentless training, a path that would either forge them into legends or break them completely. Their purpose was to serve the affiliation, the great alliance of baronies that made up the civilization of the In-World. They were its guardians, its judges, and its diplomats. They patrolled the great roads, keeping them safe from bandits and strange creatures that sometimes wandered in from the blighted lands. They settled disputes between lords, their judgment backed by the undeniable authority of their guns. But their true, deeper purpose was far grander. They were the sworn protectors of the beams and the Dark Tower. While the common folk of the In-World lived their lives with only a vague, mythic understanding of the tower, the Gunslingers knew the truth. They understood the cosmic significance of the structure that held all of reality together, and they knew of the forces that sought to tear it down. Their lives were dedicated to standing against the darkness, to ensuring that the center would hold. Their training was a thing of brutal legend. It began in childhood, where they learned the history of their order, the lore of the tower, and the principles of their strict moral code. They were taught to read and write, to speak the high speech, and to understand the complex politics of the baronies. They were also taught the ways of war. They learned to fight with their hands, with knives, and with any weapon that came to hand. But above all else, they learned the way of the gun. The gun was more than a tool to a gunslinger. It was a part of their soul. The revolvers they carried were ancient and powerful artifacts, often passed down from father to son for generations. They were heavy, long-barreled weapons, with grips often made of smooth, beautiful sandalwood. To earn the right to carry these guns was the single greatest goal of a young trainee's life. The final test was a trial by combat. A trainee, usually in their early teenage years, had to challenge their teacher to a duel. They were allowed to choose the time and the place, their only advantage against a seasoned master. The trainee was not expected to win, merely to prove themselves worthy to stand their ground with courage and skill. To succeed was to become a gunslinger, to be recognized as an adult and a full member of the order. To fail meant exile and shame, a fate often considered worse than death. The gunslingers possessed skills that seemed supernatural to ordinary men. Their speed was breathtaking. A trained gunslinger could draw, fire, and hit a target with perfect accuracy in the blink of an eye. Their reloading process was a blur of motion, a sleight of hand so fast it seemed like a magic trick. Their eyesight was impossibly keen, capable of spotting a hawk on the wing miles away, or seeing the smallest detail in the dimmest light. These abilities were not magic, not in the way a sorcerer wields power. They were the result of their unique heritage combined with a lifetime of training that honed their bodies and minds to a razor's edge. At the heart of all their training was the Gunslingers' Creed, a mantra that they recited in times of stress and concentration. It was the core of their philosophy. It begins, "I do not aim with my hand. He who aims with his hand has forgotten the face of his father." This line speaks to the idea that the physical act of aiming is secondary. To rely only on one's hand, on the simple mechanics of the body, is to be a novice. It is to forget the lineage, the training, the entire history that flows through a gunslinger's veins. It is a reminder that their skill comes from something deeper. The creed continues, "I aim with my eye." This is the next level of mastery. It is the focus, the concentration, the ability to see the target with perfect clarity, to shut out all distractions and make the world narrow down to a single point. It is the discipline of the mind, the ability to control one's own perception. Then comes the next line, "I do not shoot with my hand, I shoot with my mind." This moves beyond the physical and the perceptual into the realm of intention. The gun is merely a conduit. The true force that sends the bullet on its path is the will of the gunslinger. It is about a perfect unity of thought and action, where the desire to hit the target is so pure and so focused that it becomes a reality. The final lines of the creed are the most important. "I do not kill with my gun, I kill with my heart." This is the moral and spiritual core of the gunslinger's way. It is the understanding that the act of taking a life is a profound and terrible thing. A gunslinger must be in complete control of their emotions, their heart. They cannot kill in anger or in fear or for personal gain. To do so would be to corrupt the purpose of their order and to forget the face of their father. To kill with one's heart means to kill with a clear and absolute purpose, with a full understanding of the consequences, and with a heart that is committed to the protection of the white. It is a solemn and terrible duty, and it must be done with a clear conscience and a steady soul. This was the ideal that the gunslingers strove for. They were meant to be stoic, honorable, and incorruptible, a force of stability in a world that was slowly beginning to unravel. They were the last line of defense for a civilization that was unknowingly poised on the brink of collapse, a final, fading glimmer of a golden age that was about to be swallowed by the long, dark night. For all their strength and all their honor, they were not invincible, and the forces gathering against them were patient, cunning, and utterly ruthless. The last great city of the gunslingers, the heart of the affiliation and the capital of the in-world, was Gilead. Its name was a word from the old times, meaning a hill of witness, and it was a city that had witnessed centuries of peace and prosperity. It was a place of soaring towers and grand halls, built within a fortress of immense grey stone walls. At its centre stood the citadel, the home of the Gunslingers' order and the seat of their power. From here they ruled with a firm but just hand, their influence stretching across the baronies from the green lands of the west to the great eastern ocean. But in the final generation of the Gunslingers, the generation of Roland Deschain, Gilead was a city living on borrowed time. The world outside its walls was changing. The fabric of reality itself was beginning to thin, a sickness that manifested in strange ways. Time and distance were becoming unreliable. Monsters from the prim, creatures of myth and nightmare, were appearing in the wild lands with increasing frequency. The baronies were growing restless, their old loyalties to the affiliation beginning to fray. And a new power was rising, a force of rebellion led by a man known only as John Farson, the Good Man. Farson was a charismatic and mysterious figure who promised a new world, a world without the rigid, feudal rule of the Gunslingers. He spoke of freedom, equality, and an end to the old ways. His message found fertile ground among the common folk, who had grown to resent the Gunslingers' authority and among the lesser lords who chafed under the power of the great baronies. Farsen's rebellion was not a simple war of armies. It was a war of ideas, a war of corruption that ate away at the foundations of the in-world from within. He used spies and assassins, propaganda and sabotage. He turned lords against each other and exploited the growing sense of decay that was palpable throughout the land. But John Farsen was not the true architect of Gilead's downfall. He was a pawn, a charismatic figurehead for a much older and more malevolent intelligence. The true enemy was the sorcerer Martin Broadcloak, who was himself just one of the many guises of the Man in Black, an agent of the Crimson King. The Man in Black had been working for decades, perhaps centuries, to bring about the ruin of the Gunslingers. He understood their strengths and, more importantly, their weaknesses. He knew that their rigid adherence to honor and tradition made them predictable. He knew that their bloodline, their greatest strength, could also be a source of pride and arrogance. He infiltrated the court of Gilead, serving as an advisor to Roland's father, Stephen Deschain, the leader of the Gunslingers. From this position of trust, he sowed seeds of discord and paranoia. His greatest act of betrayal was the seduction of Roland's mother, Gabrielle Deschain. This affair was not born of love or passion, but was a calculated act of psychological warfare. The Man in Black used his magic and his charisma to turn her against her husband and her son, poisoning the heart of the ruling family and creating a rift that could never be healed. It was this betrayal that ultimately drove a young and impetuous Roland to challenge his teacher for his guns years before he was ready. He succeeded, becoming the youngest gunslinger in Gilead's history. But his victory was a hollow one, born from a place of anger and a desire for revenge against the sorcerer who had shamed his house. This act marked the beginning of the end. The internal rot within Gilead grew worse. The Gunslingers, once a united brotherhood, became suspicious of one another. The trust that had bound them together for centuries was shattered. All the while, John Farsen's armies grew in strength, armed with ancient technology, old war machines from a bygone era that had been unearthed and restored by the good man's followers. They waged a brutal and relentless war against the affiliation, and the baronies began to fall, one by one. The final battle, the last great stand of the Gunslingers of Gilead, took place at a desolate place called Jericho Hill. By this point, Gilead itself had fallen, betrayed from within and overwhelmed by Farsen's forces. Only a small, determined band of gunslingers led by Roland and his dearest friends remained. They were the last of the line of Eld, the final remnant of a once great order. At Jericho Hill, they faced the entire army of John Farsen. They were outnumbered 100 to 1, a small island of defiance against an endless sea of enemies. They knew there was no hope of victory, no chance of survival. They fought not for their lives, but for their honor, and for the memory of the world they had failed to protect. The battle was a thing of terrible, tragic glory. The gunslingers fought with all the supernatural skill and courage of their ancestors. The sound of their guns echoed across the barren hills, a final defiant roar against the dying of the light. They fought until their ammunition ran out, and then they fought with knives and with their bare hands. One by one they fell. Cuthbert Allgood, the jester, and the heart of their group, was shot down. Alain Johns, the psychic, and the calm center, was killed. In the end, only Roland Deschain was left, wounded and alone, surrounded by the bodies of his friends and the wreckage of his world. He survived, but his survival was a curse. He was the last gunslinger. The fall of Gilead was more than just the end of a city. It was the end of an age. The entire civilization of the in-world collapsed into a state of brutal, post-apocalyptic feudalism. The old technology failed, the old knowledge was lost, and the world moved on, leaving behind only ruins and faded memories. The order of gunslingers was extinguished, their code forgotten, their sacred purpose abandoned. All that remained was one man, a solitary figure driven by a relentless, all-consuming obsession to reach the Dark Tower, to find the answers he sought, and to perhaps find some measure of redemption for the world he had lost and the friends he had failed. The fall of Gilead was the great tragedy that shaped him, the fire that burned away everything in his life except for his quest. Roland Deschain of Gilead is the central figure of the entire saga, a character of immense complexity and contradiction. He is a hero, but he is a deeply flawed one. He is a protector, but he is also a killer. He is a man of honor, but he is capable of great cruelty. To understand Roland, one must understand the world that made him and the burdens that he carries. He is the last of the line of Eld, the final descendant of Arthur Eld himself. The blood of kings and legendary warriors flows in his veins, and with it comes a profound sense of duty and an unshakable will. But he is also a man out of time, a relic of a dead civilization walking through the ruins of his own world. He has lived for an impossibly long time, his life extended by the strange, time-distorting nature of the land and the sheer force of his obsession with the tower. He has seen friends and lovers grow old and die, seen civilizations rise and fall, and all the while he has kept walking, his eyes fixed on the distant, unseen spire that dominates his every waking thought. His physical appearance reflects the hardness of his life and his quest. He is tall and lanky, with a weathered, sun-beaten face that rarely shows emotion. His most striking feature is his eyes, a piercing and unsettling shade of blue, often described as Bombardier's eyes, the eyes of a man who has seen too much and is focused on a single, distant target. He is a man of few words, often communicating in gruff, simple statements. His movements are economical and precise, the result of a lifetime of training and a need to conserve energy on his endless journey. He is the archetypal wanderer, the lonely hero, but his loneliness is a choice, a self-imposed exile born from the belief that love and friendship are luxuries he can no longer afford. The quest for the Dark Tower is the single defining purpose of Roland's existence. It began as a duty, the sacred mission of his order, to protect the beams and preserve the stability of the multiverse. After the fall of Gilead and the death of all his comrades, this duty became a personal obsession. He believes that by reaching the tower, he can somehow set things right. Perhaps he can reverse the decay of the beams, or undo the destruction of his world, or even turn back time and prevent the tragedies of his past. But over the long, lonely centuries of his pursuit, his motivations have become darker and more ambiguous. His quest is no longer purely altruistic. It has become a selfish need, a burning desire to see the room at the top of the tower, to confront the power that resides there, and to demand answers for his suffering. This obsession has made him a deeply dangerous man. He is a master of situational ethics, willing to do whatever it takes to continue his journey. He will sacrifice anything and anyone if he believes it will bring him one step closer to his goal. He has betrayed friends, left lovers to die, and even sacrificed a part of his own soul for the sake of the tower. This is the central tragedy of his character. He is a man trying to save all of reality, but in the process, he often destroys the very things that make reality worth saving, such as love, compassion, and human connection. He is ruled by the concept of Ka, or destiny. He feels its pull constantly, a sense that his path is predetermined and that he is merely a pawn in a great cosmic game. He often resigns himself to the will of Ka, accepting the terrible things that happen as simply being part of the plan. Yet he is not merely a puppet. He makes choices, and often he makes the wrong ones, choices born of his own stubbornness, his pride, and his inability to let go of his quest. He is a man caught in a paradox, a servant of destiny who constantly struggles against his own nature. His journey is a cycle of hope and despair. He gathers new companions, a new katet, people drawn to him from other worlds by the will of the tower. He learns to care for them, even to love them, and for a time it seems as if he might be rediscovering his own humanity. But the tower always calls, and his obsession always returns, forcing him to make impossible choices that inevitably lead to more pain and more loss. He is a man haunted by ghosts. The memory of his lost love, Susan Delgado, a girl he was forced to abandon to a fiery death in his youth, is a constant source of pain and guilt. The faces of his fallen friends from Jericho Hill appear to him in dreams and visions, reminding him of his failure. The greatest ghost of all is his own younger self, the innocent and hopeful boy he once was before the world broke his heart and his quest consumed his soul. Roland Deschain is the last knight of a forgotten order, a lonely pilgrim on a road that leads to the center of all creation. His quest is both noble and monstrous, a desperate attempt to save the universe by a man who has lost almost everything, including, at times, himself. He is a hero cast in the mold of the old epics, a figure of immense strength and tragic flaws, a man whose final destiny is inextricably linked to the fate of the Dark Tower itself. Every great hero is defined by their nemesis, the shadow that stands in opposition to their light. For Roland Deschain, that shadow is a being of immense power and bottomless malice known by many names, but most commonly as the Man in Black. He is not just an enemy, he is the architect of much of Roland's pain, a timeless sorcerer who has been Roland's personal demon since the Gunslinger's youth. The Man in Black is an interdimensional traveler, a servant of chaos who drifts between the worlds of the multiverse, sowing discord and destruction wherever he goes. He is a master of disguise and deception, appearing in different forms and using different names in each world he touches. In the world of the Stand, he is Randall Flagg, the dark man who gathers the dregs of humanity to him in Las Vegas to build a new empire of evil. In the court of Gilead, he was Martin Broadcloak, the cunning advisor who poisoned the king's marriage. To the boy Roland in the desert, he is simply the Man in Black, a mysterious and taunting figure who holds the key to the next stage of the quest. His true name is Walter O'Dim, and his origins are shrouded in mystery. He is ancient, perhaps even immortal, and he possesses a vast array of magical powers. He can summon demons, see the future in a pack of cards, cast powerful illusions, and manipulate the minds of lesser men with ease. But his greatest weapon has always been his profound and cynical understanding of human nature. He knows how to find the cracks in a person's soul, their secret fears, their hidden shames, their selfish desires, and he exploits these weaknesses with surgical precision and sadistic glee. He does not seek to rule in the traditional sense. He has no interest in building kingdoms or managing empires. He is an agent of chaos, a cosmic anarchist who believes that life is a meaningless joke and that all systems of order, all beliefs in good and evil, are illusions that deserve to be shattered. He finds joy in entropy, in watching things fall apart. He delights in corrupting the innocent, in turning friends against each other, and in proving to everyone that in the end there is nothing but darkness and decay. His goal is to bring about the end of all things, not through a swift and clean apocalypse, but through a slow and agonizing process of rot. He wants to see the universe die screaming, and he wants to be there to laugh at its final pathetic moments. While he is a force of chaos in his own right, the Man in Black is not the ultimate power of evil in the multiverse. He serves a master, a being of far greater power and far deeper insanity, the Crimson King. The Crimson King is the dark god of this universe, a mad entity imprisoned at the very top of the Dark Tower. His ultimate goal is to tear the tower down, break the beams, and allow the formless chaos of the Prim to consume all of creation. The Man in Black is the King's chief lieutenant, his most trusted and effective servant. He carries out the King's will across the worlds, working to weaken the beams and undermine the forces of the White. However, the Man in Black is not a loyal servant. He is treacherous by nature, and while he serves the Crimson King, he also harbors his own ambitions. He dreams of one day reaching the tower himself, of climbing its many stairs and perhaps even usurping the Crimson King's throne. He sees the King's madness as a weakness and believes that he, with his cunning and intellect, is the more worthy ruler of the coming darkness. This makes him an even more dangerous and unpredictable foe. He is playing his own game, serving his own agenda, and he is willing to betray anyone, even his own dark master, to achieve his goals. His relationship with Roland Deschain is deeply personal and complex. He is both the Gunslinger's tormentor and his guide. It was the Man in Black who set Roland on his quest in the first place, luring him out into the desert after the fall of Gilead. He has been a constant presence in Roland's life, sometimes appearing directly to taunt him, other times manipulating events from the shadows. He seems to take a special, perverse pleasure in Roland's suffering. He sees the Gunslinger as the last, stubborn remnant of an age of honor and order that he despises, and he is determined to break him, to prove that even the noblest of heroes can be corrupted and made to despair. In their first major confrontation at a Golgotha in the desert, the Man in Black does not try to kill Roland. Instead, he lays out a bizarre and cryptic prophecy for him, a vision of the future that will guide the Gunslinger's path for years to come. He speaks of the drawing of the three, the companions Roland must find to form his new quartet. He does this not out of kindness, but because he believes that Roland's quest is ultimately doomed to fail, and that watching him struggle and sacrifice his new friends will be the ultimate entertainment. He sees the entire quest as a grand cosmic joke, and Roland is the punchline. The Man in Black represents a modern, cynical form of evil. He is not a roaring monster or a dark knight. He is the smiling, charming stranger who offers you a poisoned apple, the charismatic leader who promises you paradise and leads you into hell. He is the voice of doubt that whispers in your ear that nothing matters and that all your efforts are meaningless. For Roland, a man defined by his singular, epic purpose, the Man in Black is the ultimate philosophical opponent, a constant reminder that the path to the tower is not just a physical journey, but a battle for the soul against the encroaching forces of chaos and despair. Act 3. The forces of corrosion and decay. If the Dark Tower is the embodiment of order and the Gunslingers its sworn protectors, then there must exist an equal and opposite force, a power dedicated not to creation, but to unmaking. This force is not a simple army or a rival kingdom. It is a fundamental cosmic principle of rot, of madness, and of absolute nihilism. Its ultimate expression, its god, and its avatar is a being of unimaginable power and even greater insanity known as the Crimson King. To speak of the Crimson King is to speak of the great and terrible shadow that falls across the entire multiverse. He is the ultimate villain of the saga, the true enemy behind all the other enemies. The Man in Black, for all his power and cunning, is but a servant, a high-ranking lieutenant in the King's vast and terrible court. John Farson, the man who brought down Gilead, was a mere pawn. The Crimson King is the source from which much of the darkness flows, a being whose very existence is a poison to reality. His origins are a twisted and blasphemous mockery of the noble lineage of the Gunslingers. He is, in a sense, a relative of Roland Deschain. The legends say that he was the offspring of two impossible parents, Arthur Eld, the great king and founder of the Gunslingers, and a demonic creature from the Prim, the formless chaos that lies outside the tower's protection. He is a hybrid, a being of two natures. In his veins runs the blood of the white, the lineage of order and destiny, but this noble heritage is utterly corrupted and overwhelmed by the chaotic, cancerous blood of the outer dark. This duality is the source of his power and his madness. He possesses a legitimate claim to the world of order, yet his entire being is dedicated to destroying it. He is the ultimate traitor, the prodigal son who seeks not just to usurp his father's throne, but to burn the entire kingdom to the ground and salt the earth so that nothing may ever grow again. His form is not fixed, but his most common manifestation is that of a humanoid figure, often depicted as an old man with a wild white beard and burning red eyes dressed in royal robes of crimson. But this human form is a lie, a mask that hides his true nature. His other, more primal form is that of a monstrous, intelligent spider, a creature of nightmare that perfectly represents his role as a weaver of chaotic and destructive webs. This spider form connects him to the great demon spiders that sometimes slip through from the Todash spaces between the worlds, suggesting that his chaotic heritage is far older and more alien than even the legends tell. The Crimson King's goal is simple in its conception and apocalyptic in its scale. He does not wish to rule the multiverse. He does not want to conquer worlds or enslave populations. Such ambitions are beneath him. His desire is to tear down the Dark Tower, to break the 6 beams that support it, and to bring about the total collapse of the entire multiversal structure. He wants to erase existence itself. He desires to return everything to the state that existed before creation, the mindless, screaming, formless chaos of the Prim. His motivation is not born of a desire for power, but from a state of absolute, cosmic insanity. He looks upon creation with its rules, its patterns, its stories of love and loss, and sees it as an offense. He is the ultimate nihilist, a being who believes so profoundly in the meaninglessness of everything that he is willing to destroy himself and all of reality just to prove his point. He is a king who rules over a kingdom of decay, a monarch whose only decree is the dissolution of all things. For a long time, the Crimson King waged his war from a castle known as the Le Casse-Roi Russe, the castle of the Red King, a dark fortress in the blasted lands of End World. From here, he marshaled his armies and directed his agents. But in a final, desperate gambit, he launched a direct assault on the Dark Tower itself. He was repelled, but in a strange and terrible turn of events, he managed to reach the tower and climb it. However, he did not find the control room of creation he sought. Instead, he became a prisoner. He is trapped on one of the tower's balconies, locked outside the final door, unable to enter and unable to leave. He is a king imprisoned in the very structure he sought to destroy, a situation that has only deepened his rage and his madness. Yet his imprisonment has not made him powerless. In fact, in some ways it has made him more dangerous. He is no longer a distant general commanding an army. He has become a psychic virus at the very heart of reality. From his balcony prison he projects his will across the multiverse. His rage and his madness bleed out from the tower, infecting the worlds, accelerating their decay, and empowering his servants. He is like a cancer that has metastasized in the central organ of the cosmos. His influence is felt everywhere. He is the unseen hand that guides the saboteur, the whisper of despair in the ear of the hero, the source of the sickness that is causing reality to unravel. All the lesser evils, all the monsters and villains that plague the many worlds ultimately serve his purpose, whether they know it or not. Every act of senseless violence, every betrayal, every moment of despair weakens the will of those who would protect the tower and adds another small crack to its foundation. The symbol of the Crimson King is the unfound eye, a swirling, lidless red eye that sees all and despises all that it sees. It is the sigil of his new order, a world without order, and it is a mark that his servants wear with pride. To stand against the Crimson King is to stand against the concept of oblivion itself. It is to argue for the value of existence in the face of a being who is utterly convinced of its worthlessness. This is the true nature of the battle for the tower. It is not a war for territory, but a war for the very right of the universe to exist. And at the heart of the enemy's power is a mad Spider King trapped on a balcony, screaming his hatred for creation into the winds of time. The Crimson King's grand strategy for destroying the Dark Tower is not one of direct physical assault. Such a method proved to be a failure. His new plan, orchestrated from his balcony prison, is far more insidious. It is a slow, grinding war of attrition aimed at the tower's foundations, the 6 beams that support it. The king knows that if the beams break, the tower will fall on its own. But how does one break a beam of pure cosmic energy, a force that is more a concept than a physical object? The answer is as cruel as it is brilliant. You use the power of the human mind. The most vital soldiers in the Crimson King's War are not warriors with swords or guns. They are a group of powerful psychics who have been kidnapped from across the multiverse and forced into slavery. They are known as the Breakers. The Breakers are individuals who were born with extraordinary mental abilities. They are telepaths, telekinetics, and clairvoyants of the highest order. In their own worlds, they may have been considered gifted or cursed, or perhaps they lived their entire lives never knowing the full extent of their own power. The agents of the Crimson King, particularly the low men known as the Cantoi, have spent decades, even centuries, scouring the many worlds, especially Keystone Earth, for these gifted individuals. They identify them, track them, and then, when the moment is right, they abduct them, pulling them out of their own realities and into the dying world of the Gunslingers. Once captured, these psychics are taken to a grim and terrible prison camp called Devartoi, or the Abode of the Damned. Devartoi is a heavily guarded compound located in the desolate lands near End World. It is a place of utter misery and hopelessness, designed to crush the spirit and focus the mind on a single, terrible task. The camp is surrounded by fences and watchtowers, and it is patrolled by brutal guards. The Breakers are housed in barracks, given meager food, and subjected to a relentless routine. Their lives are a monotonous cycle of work, sleep, and despair. At the center of Devartoi are the work areas, the places where the breaking happens. Here, the psychics are forced to sit in circles, their minds linked together by powerful and painful technology. They are then directed to focus their combined mental energy on one of the 6 beams, which are metaphysically visible to them from their location. The act of breaking is a form of psychic siege warfare. The Breakers project their power as a continuous focused wave of destructive mental force. It is not a quick or explosive act, it is a slow, grinding erosion. They are like a river of acid, slowly dissolving the rock of reality. Day after day, year after year, they pour their mental strength into this task, and with each passing moment, the great beams of creation grow a little bit weaker, a little bit thinner. The process is agonizing for the Breakers, It drains their life force, leaving them prematurely aged and spiritually exhausted. To keep them compliant and productive, their masters use a combination of methods. They are drugged with a substance that dulls their emotions and enhances their psychic output. They are constantly monitored by guards and by telepathic overseers who punish any sign of resistance with severe pain or death. And, most cruelly, they are given small comforts and distractions, such as movies and music from their home worlds, to create a thin illusion of normalcy and to prevent them from falling into a state of catatonic despair, which would render them useless. These distractions are a particularly insidious form of psychological torture, constantly reminding them of the lives and the worlds they have lost. The population of Devar Toy is diverse, a tragic collection of souls from 1,000 different times and places. There might be a child from the 1950s who could bend spoons with his mind, sitting next to a powerful shaman from a world where magic is common, sitting next to a housewife from the 1990s who had premonitions of the future. Each one of them has a story, a family, a life that was stolen from them. They are the great unsung tragedy of the war for the tower. Their unwilling sacrifice is the fuel for the Crimson King's engine of destruction. Despite the horrific conditions, the spirit of resistance is not entirely extinguished in Devar Toy. The Breakers have their own secret culture, their own ways of communicating and offering each other support. They resist in small ways, by slowing their work, by shielding their true thoughts from the overseers, and by holding on to the memories of their past lives. Some of them, like the powerful telepath Ted Brautigan, become leaders of this quiet resistance, working to find a way to escape or to sabotage the Crimson King's plan from within. The work of the Breakers is the primary reason why the multiverse is in a state of crisis. Their relentless psychic assault is the direct cause of the beam's decay. 2 of the 6 beams have already been completely broken by the time Roland's final quest begins. The remaining 4 are severely weakened. This is the ticking clock of the story. The heroes must find a way to stop the Breakers or to free them before the last beam snaps. If they fail, the tower will fall, and all of reality will be consumed by the Prim. The Breakers represent a core theme in the saga, the idea that great power, especially the power of the mind and the spirit, can be twisted and used for terrible purposes. They are a reminder that the greatest weapons in this cosmic war are not guns or bombs, but the wills and the souls of living beings. The Crimson King, for all his cosmic power, cannot be everywhere at once. To carry out his will across the infinite worlds of the multiverse, he relies on a vast and varied collection of servants. These are not a disciplined, uniform army. They are a chaotic and often grotesque assortment of creatures, a reflection of their master's own fragmented and insane nature. They are the foot soldiers of entropy, the agents of decay, and they come in many shapes and sizes. The most common and numerous of the king's servants are the Can-Toi, also known as the Low-Men. The Can-Toi are a pathetic and vicious race, the result of failed experiments in a place called the Labs of the Dogan, where sorcerers tried to magically crossbreed humans and animals. They are a mockery of humanity, beings with humanoid bodies but with the heads and features of rats, weasels, or other vermin. Their origins have filled them with a deep-seated self-loathing, which they project outwards as a bitter and cruel hatred for true humans. They know they are not the real thing, and this knowledge gnaws at them, driving them to acts of petty cruelty and senseless violence. To hide their deformed faces, the Can-Toi often wear ill-fitting rubber masks of human faces, creating a grotesque and uncanny appearance. They might have the mask of a smiling old man, but beneath it are the twitching whiskers and sharp teeth of a rat. They are a walking, breathing example of the uncanny valley, things that are almost human but are horribly wrong. The Kantoi have a strange fascination with the culture of Keystone Earth. They love our cars, our music, our slang, and our clothing, and they try to imitate human behavior, but always in a clumsy, off-key way. They are like alien cargo cultists adopting the superficial trappings of a culture they do not understand. This makes them excellent infiltrators. A group of Kantoi, known as the Low Men in yellow coats, might set up a front operation in a small suburban town, posing as unremarkable figures while they search for potential breakers to kidnap. They are the street-level enforcers of the Crimson King's will, the thugs and bullies who carry out the dirty work. They are not particularly brave or intelligent, relying on numbers and surprise to overwhelm their opponents. They are driven by their resentment and their desire to pull the human world down to their own degraded level. Standing a step above the Kantoi in the hierarchy of evil are the Tahin. Like the Kantoi, the Tahin are the result of human-animal crossbreeding, but they are considered a more successful and superior creation. They typically have human bodies, but with the heads of animals, most commonly birds like hawks, crows, or vultures, but also sometimes the heads of dogs, goats, or other creatures. Unlike the Kantoi, who are filled with self-hatred, the Tahin are immensely proud and arrogant. They see themselves as the next stage of evolution, a superior species destined to inherit the dying worlds. They are more intelligent, more disciplined, and often more magically gifted than the Low Men. They serve as the officers, the sorcerers, and the elite soldiers in the Crimson King's armies. They often look down on the Kantoi with contempt, viewing them as failed and embarrassing cousins. The Tahin have a more sophisticated culture. They have their own art, their own philosophy, and their own complex social structures. They are the true believers in the Crimson King's cause, serving him not just out of fear, but out of a genuine desire to see the current reality torn down so that a new, more chaotic world, with them at the top, can be born from its ashes. They are the doctors and overseers in places like Devartoy, using their cunning and their magic to keep the breakers in line. While the Kantoi represent a pathetic, resentful form of evil, the Tahin represent a more intelligent, ideological, and therefore more dangerous form of evil. Beyond these two primary races, the armies of the king include a menagerie of other horrors. There are the vampires, who are divided into different types. The Type 1 vampires are the ancient and powerful grandfathers of the species, beings of immense magical power. The lesser types are more bestial, savage creatures who serve as shock troops. There are the slow mutants, humans from blighted radioactive lands whose bodies have been twisted into monstrous shapes. There are the not men, strange insect-like creatures that seem to be from another dimension entirely. And there are the human followers, the cultists and criminals and madmen from 1,000 worlds who have willingly thrown in their lot with the forces of the dark, hoping for power and reward in the new order of chaos. This strange and mismatched army is not held together by loyalty or brotherhood. It is held together by fear and by a shared belief in the power of destruction. They are a force of corrosion, an army of rust and rot, and their very presence in a world is enough to cause it to sicken and decay. They are the living embodiment of the sickness that is spreading from the weakening tower, a physical manifestation of the universe coming apart at the seams. The war against the Dark Tower is not just a conflict of armies and agents, it is a fundamental assault on the very laws of physics and the nature of reality itself. The weakening of the beams caused by the relentless efforts of the breakers is having catastrophic consequences that are being felt across all the worlds of the multiverse. The entire structure of existence is becoming unstable, and the result is a creeping sickness of reality that manifests in strange, terrifying, and unpredictable ways. One of the most common and frightening symptoms of this decay is the appearance of what are known as thinnies. A thinny is a place where the fabric of reality has worn away, becoming thin and unsubstantial like a piece of cloth that has been rubbed too many times. They are rips in the space-time continuum, doorways to the chaotic nothingness that lies between the worlds. A thinny can appear anywhere, but they are most common along the paths of the decaying beams. Visually, they often look like a shimmering, distorted patch of air, similar to a heat haze on a summer road, but with a strange, silvery or sometimes pinkish-purple hue. They are beautiful in a terrible and hypnotic way. But their most defining characteristic is their sound. A thinny emits a constant, high-pitched, keening or chiming noise, a sound that is both alluring and deeply unsettling. It is a sound that seems to promise an end to all pain and suffering, a siren song that tempts the weary to step inside. To enter a thinny is to be utterly and completely destroyed. A person or object that passes into one is not killed in a conventional sense. They are unmade, their very atoms disassembled and scattered into the void. They are erased from existence. Thinnies are a constant and growing danger in the worlds close to the tower. They can appear suddenly, cutting off roads, swallowing up buildings and making travel a deadly gamble. They are the physical evidence that the walls of reality are crumbling. Another, perhaps even more terrifying phenomenon is the toe-dash state. To go to dash is to experience a temporary and terrifying slippage of reality. It can happen to a person or to an entire area. The world suddenly goes dark and silent, as if it has been transported to a dim, grey, twilight dimension that exists in the spaces between the normal worlds. This is the toe-dash space, a sort of cosmic crawl space filled with strange echoes and hungry things. During a toe-dash trance, time can become distorted, and monstrous creatures that live in the void can sometimes manifest. These creatures are often described as having too many tentacles, too many legs, or too many eyes. They are beings from the prim, creatures of pure chaos that have slipped through the cracks in reality. The toe-dash state is often accompanied by a faint, rhythmic sound, like the beating of distant drums, a sound that seems to call these horrors forth. For those who experience it, going to dash is a profoundly disorienting and terrifying experience, a sudden and stark reminder that the solid world they know is just a thin and fragile illusion. The sickness of reality also manifests as a general loss of cohesion and reliability in the world. The laws of nature, once constant and predictable, are beginning to fail. Time is becoming fluid and unreliable. A traveler might walk for what feels like a week, only to find they have covered just a few miles, or they might blink and find that hours have passed in an instant. Direction and distance are no longer absolute. A compass might spin uselessly, and landmarks can seem to shift and change. This temporal and spatial distortion makes long journeys like the quest for the tower incredibly difficult and dangerous. Technology is also affected by this decay. Complex machines, especially electronics, begin to break down in unpredictable ways. This is particularly noticeable in worlds that are technologically advanced, like Keystone Earth. The more complex the system, the more vulnerable it is to the encroaching chaos. This technological decay is a sign that the very principles of logic and causality that underpin scientific laws are beginning to erode. This cosmic sickness has a profound psychological effect on the inhabitants of the multiverse. As the world becomes less predictable and more dangerous, people become more fearful, more superstitious, and more prone to madness. Old myths and legends about monsters and demons suddenly seem to be coming true. The general sense that the world has moved on is a feeling of pervasive, low-grade anxiety, a sense that things are not right, that the center is no longer holding. This creeping dread is the Crimson King's most potent weapon. By breaking down the very reality that people depend on, he breaks down their minds, their hope, and their will to resist. The sickness of reality is the ultimate proof that the war for the tower is a war for everything. The decay is not happening in some distant, magical land. It is happening everywhere, in every world, including our own. The cracks are forming, the walls are thinning, and the endless, screaming darkness of the Prim is beginning to leak through. Act 4. The journey to the nexus and the nature of reality. After the fall of his world and the long, lonely pursuit of the man in black across a desert that seemed to stretch for an eternity, Roland Deschain was left with a cryptic and maddening prophecy. The sorcerer had told him that his future, his path to the tower, was not a solitary one. He was destined to draw 3 companions from a world that was both strange and central to all of creation, our own Keystone Earth. These were not to be allies of convenience, but a new quartet, a group bound by the inescapable force of destiny. The drawing of these 3 individuals is the true beginning of the final quest for the tower, the moment when Roland's lonely obsession is transformed into a shared journey. It is a process fraught with peril, a series of magical and psychological trials that test the gunslinger's will and force him to confront the very nature of the multiverse he seeks to save. The process of the drawing begins on a desolate beach in the western sea of Roland's world. Here he finds 3 freestanding doorways standing on the sand. They are made of a strange grey wood that seems to absorb the light, and they are not connected to any wall or structure. They are simply there, impossible, and yet solid. Each door is a portal, a gateway into the mind and the world of one of the 3 who must be drawn. Each door has a name carved upon it, a title that hints at the person who lies beyond. The first door is called the Prisoner. When Roland steps through this first doorway, he does not physically travel. Instead, his consciousness is pulled into the body and the mind of a young man named Eddie Dean. This is the horrifying and disorienting nature of the drawing. Roland is a passenger in another man's flesh, able to see what he sees, hear what he hears, and speak with his voice, but not in complete control. He is a ghost in the machine, a whisper in the back of the mind. The man he finds himself inhabiting, Eddie Dean, is a prisoner in every sense of the word. He is a prisoner of his time, the year 1987 in New York City. He is a prisoner of his circumstances, flying on an airplane as a drug mule, his body packed with cocaine that he is smuggling for a dangerous mob boss. But most of all, he is a prisoner of his addiction. Eddie is a heroin addict, and his life has been a downward spiral of dependency and poor choices, all driven by his need for the drug and by a complicated, codependent relationship with his older brother, Henry. Roland finds himself in this world of bright lights, strange metal flying machines, and loud, confusing talk, a world utterly alien to him. More than that, he finds himself in the middle of a crisis. The customs officials on the plane are beginning to suspect Eddie, and the carefully constructed lies he has built are starting to fall apart. He is terrified, sweating, and beginning to feel the first agonizing pangs of withdrawal. Roland, the stoic and disciplined gunslinger, is now linked to a man who is the very picture of weakness and desperation. The gunslinger's voice begins as a whisper in Eddie's mind, a voice Eddie initially thinks is a hallucination, a symptom of his growing panic. But Roland is real, and he has a purpose. He needs Eddie not just for his quest, but for his immediate survival. Roland himself is dying. He has been poisoned by the bite of a monstrous lobster-like creature on the beach, and his body is racked with a fever that is slowly killing him. The medicine he needs to survive does not exist in his world, but it exists in Eddie's. This is the first great bargain of the new quartet. Roland offers Eddie a way out of his immediate predicament, a way to escape the authorities who are closing in on him. In return, Eddie must help Roland get the medicine he needs. The initial relationship between the two men is one of pure hostility and suspicion. Eddie sees Roland as a commanding, terrifying voice in his head, a hallucination that has taken control of his life. Roland sees Eddie as a weak, pathetic fool, a slave to a drug he cannot understand, a pale shadow of the kind of man he once knew. Yet they are bound together by necessity. Using Roland's tactical mind and centuries of experience in combat and deception, they manage to create a diversion on the airplane. They turn the tables on the flight attendants and the air marshals, creating a hostage situation that allows Eddie to secure what he needs, the cocaine he is smuggling. The plan is not to sell it, but to trade it. Roland guides Eddie, forcing him to act with a courage and a decisiveness he never knew he possessed. They leave the plane and make their way into the city, into the territory of the drug lord Balazar, the man who owns Eddie body and soul. The confrontation in Balazar's gangster den is a brutal and bloody affair. Roland, acting through Eddie, unleashes the lethal skills of a gunslinger in a modern world. The gangsters, with their automatic weapons and their street smarts, are no match for the ancient, deadly precision of the last son of Eld. It is a culture clash written in blood. After securing the medicine for Roland's fever, the final step of the drawing must be completed. Eddie must choose to step through the magical door on the beach and leave his entire world behind. For Eddie, this is an impossible choice. He is leaving behind his brother, his life, everything he has ever known, to join a dying man from another reality on a quest he does not understand. But his life in New York is already over. The shootout at Balazar's has made him a wanted man, a cop killer. There is nothing left for him but a life on the run or a slow death in prison. With nothing left to lose, he makes the choice. He steps through the portal and onto the desolate beach of the Western Sea. He is the first. The prisoner has been drawn. He is a man freed from one prison only to find himself in another, a dying world under a sick, strange sun. But for the first time in a long time, he is not alone, and his journey, for better or worse, has a purpose. The second door that stands on that lonely beach bears a different, more enigmatic title: The Lady of the Shadows. The poison in Roland's veins is still potent, and the medicine Eddie brought back is a temporary fix. His infection is getting worse, his legs are becoming useless, and he knows he does not have much time. He needs the help of the person behind this second door, but the title gives him a sense of deep unease. It speaks of duality, of secrets and hidden things. When he pushes the door open and his mind is once again pulled across the void, he finds himself in a situation far more complex and dangerous than the one he faced with Eddie Dean. He enters the mind of a woman in New York City, but this time it is the year 1964, and the woman is not one person, but two living in a single body. Her name is Odetta Holmes. She is a woman of wealth, education, and deep conviction. She is a passionate and eloquent activist in the civil rights movement, a voice for justice and equality in a time of great social upheaval. She is kind, intelligent, and courageous. She is also a double amputee, having lost her legs below the knee in a tragic incident when she was a child, a senseless act of violence that has left her confined to a wheelchair. But there is another personality that shares her body, a personality that Odetta herself knows nothing about. When Odetta is under extreme stress or is faced with a threat, another voice, another person, takes over. This other is Detta Walker. Detta is the polar opposite of Odetta. She is a creature of pure, vicious hatred, a cunning and cruel individual filled with a bottomless rage against the world, particularly against white people. She is vulgar, violent, and deeply suspicious of everyone. She is the shadow self, the dark twin born from the trauma that took Odetta's legs. Odetta and Detta are two completely separate consciousnesses, each unaware of the other's existence. They have their own memories, their own mannerisms, their own way of speaking. When one is in control, the other is simply gone, leaving only a blackout, a period of lost time. Roland finds himself dropped into the middle of this psychological minefield. His task is to draw this woman, this lady of the shadows, into his world. But which one? Odetta, the gentle and intelligent woman who could be a powerful ally, or Detta, the savage and unpredictable force of nature who would likely try to kill him and Eddie the first chance she got. The drawing of Odetta Holmes and Detta Walker is a battle fought on two fronts. In the physical world of 1964 New York, Roland must use Odetta's body to navigate the city and acquire what he needs, mainly ammunition for his ancient revolvers. This is a challenge in itself, as he must contend with the racial prejudices of the time and the physical limitations of being in a wheelchair. But the true battle is a psychological one. Roland and Eddie must find a way to make both personalities, the gentle Odetta and the hateful Detta, cross through the door into their world. They succeed, but in doing so, they bring a new and terrible danger to their small camp. Odetta is confused and frightened by her new surroundings. Detta, when she takes over, is homicidal. She sees the two men as her captors and her enemies. She tries to escape, she tries to sabotage their supplies, and she tries to turn them against each other, using her cunning to play on Eddie's fears and his resentment of Roland. She is a prisoner who has become the jailer, a constant internal threat to the survival of the quartet. Roland realizes that their group cannot survive with this internal division. The Lady of the Shadows cannot remain two separate people. They must be forged into a single, new personality. The only way to do this is to force Odetta and Detta to confront each other, to see each other for the first time. The final door on the beach provides the means. Its title is The Pusher, a name that speaks to the violent act that created this schism in the first place. Roland knows that this door leads to the mind of the man who pushed Odetta in front of the subway train all those years ago. The confrontation is a brutal and magical ordeal. Roland pushes the wheelchair containing both Odetta and Detta through the third door. In the metaphysical space beyond the door, the two personalities are finally forced to look at each other. They are shown the truth of their shared life, the truth of the trauma that created them, and the identity of the man who caused their pain. This shared experience, this shared confrontation with their past, shatters the walls between them. The two personalities do not simply merge, they are integrated, creating a new, whole person who is more than the sum of her parts. She is not Odetta, and she is not Detta. She is a new woman, strong, intelligent, and possessing the best and most useful traits of both her former selves. She has Odetta's compassion and intellect, and she has Detta's fierce survival instinct and unbreakable will. She chooses a new name for herself, Susanna Dean, taking Eddie's last name as a symbol of her new place in this new family. The Lady of the Shadows has been drawn and made whole. Susanna Dean becomes the second member of the quartet, a powerful and essential part of their journey. The drawing of the first two companions was a matter of necessity and survival. The drawing of the third, however, is a matter of redemption. It is Roland's chance to correct the greatest sin of his past. Long ago, in his pursuit of the man in black, Roland had a young companion, a boy named Jake Chambers, who had been mysteriously transported to Roland's world from New York City. At a critical moment in a dark tunnel under the mountains, Roland was faced with a terrible choice: save Jake from falling into an abyss, or let the boy die and continue his pursuit of the sorcerer. Driven by his obsession with the tower, Roland chose the tower. He let Jake fall, and the boy's last words to him were, "Go then, there are other worlds than these." This act of sacrifice has haunted Roland ever since. It was the moment he put his quest above his humanity, the moment he truly forgot the face of his father. But the interconnected nature of the multiverse is a strange thing. Roland's actions in 1987 and 1964, during the drawing of Eddie and Susanna, have created a paradox. By interacting with the world of New York, he has changed its history in subtle ways. This has created a new timeline, a timeline in which the boy Jake was never pulled into Roland's world in the first place. He was never killed. Instead, he simply lived his life in New York City. The problem is that Jake now exists with two sets of memories in his head. He has the memories of his normal life in New York, and he has the ghost memories of a gunslinger, a desert, and a terrifying death in a dark tunnel. These conflicting realities are driving him insane. He is plagued by nightmares, he is failing in school, and his wealthy, neglectful parents think he is losing his mind. He feels a constant sense of dislocation, a feeling that he is supposed to be somewhere else with someone else. At the same time, on the other side of the doors, Roland and Eddie are also going mad. They are haunted by the memory of a boy who, in this new timeline, they have never met. They have a phantom sense of loss, a feeling that someone is missing from their quartet. This shared madness, this paradox that is tearing at the minds of all three of them, is a symptom of the sickness of reality. A wound has been opened in the fabric of time, and it must be healed. Jake, guided by voices and a sense of destiny he cannot explain, begins a quest of his own in New York. He is drawn to a vacant lot in the heart of the city where a single, perfect rose is growing. He recognizes this rose as a thing of immense power and importance, a living symbol of the tower. He is also drawn to an old, dilapidated mansion on Dutch Hill, a place that is known to be haunted. This mansion is a nexus point, a place where the barrier between the worlds is thin. It is here that the drawing of the third must take place. The third door on the beach had the title The Pusher, and it was used to merge Odetta and Detta. But its purpose was twofold. It was also meant for another. The man who pushed Odetta was also the man who, in the original timeline, had pushed Jake into traffic, causing the death that sent him to Roland's world in the first place. The connections of Carr are deep and often terrible. To draw Jake, Roland and his companions must perform a difficult and dangerous ritual. They must find their own haunted place in their world, a circle of standing stones that is a mirror to the haunted mansion in Jake's. There they must use a key, a physical key from Jake's world, to open a metaphysical door. The ritual is a desperate race against time. The mansion in New York is being torn apart by a demonic presence that lives within it. Jake is trapped inside and the house is collapsing around him. On the other side, Roland must push deep into his own mind, confronting his guilt and his memory of letting the boy die. He must face his past failure and find the will to correct it. This time, when faced with the choice, he must choose the boy over the tower. In a climactic and emotional moment, the barrier between the worlds is breached. The door is opened. Jake Chambers, the boy who died, is reborn into the world of the gunslinger. He is pulled through the portal and into Roland's arms. The paradox is resolved. The wound in time is healed. The madness that afflicted them all is lifted. Jake Chambers, brave and resourceful, becomes the third and final member of Roland's new quartet. His arrival marks a turning point for the gunslinger. By saving Jake, by choosing to redeem his past sin, Roland has taken a crucial step back towards his own humanity. The new family is complete, and their shared journey to the Dark Tower can now truly begin. The importance of our own world, Keystone Earth, becomes increasingly central to the quest as the quartet grows. It is not just a recruiting ground for Roland's companions, it is a vital battlefield in the war for the tower. The Crimson King and his servants understand that a direct assault on the tower is difficult, but an indirect assault, one that targets the linchpin of all realities, could be just as effective. If they can corrupt and destroy Keystone Earth, the resulting psychic shockwave could be enough to topple the tower. The primary focal point of this battle on our world is the object that Jake Chambers was drawn to protect, the single, beautiful rose that grows in a vacant lot in Manhattan. This rose is not just a plant, it is the living, breathing twin of the Dark Tower itself, its physical manifestation in the most important of all the worlds. Its fragrance is the music of creation, and its health is a direct reflection of the tower's stability. The forces of the Crimson King know this, and they have been working for decades to acquire the land on which the rose grows so they can bulldoze it and build a skyscraper in its place. They have created a network of shell corporations and powerful businesses to achieve this goal, the most prominent of which is the Sombra Corporation, a seemingly ordinary company that is, in reality, a front for the King's operations on Earth. Protecting the rose becomes one of the quartet's most important and unusual tasks. This is a battle that cannot be won with guns. It must be fought on the enemy's terms in the world of contracts, lawyers, and real estate. This presents a unique challenge for Roland, a man from a feudal, post-apocalyptic world who must now learn to navigate the complexities of 20th century corporate America. The guardians of the rose on Keystone Earth are two elderly men, the lot's owner, a cantankerous and reclusive man named Calvin Tower, who also owns a bookstore full of rare and important texts, and his friend Aaron Deepno, a wise and kind man who helps him run the store. These two men have been the unknowing protectors of this sacred ground for years, fending off offers from the Sombra Corporation through sheer stubbornness. But the pressure is mounting, and the King's agents are becoming more aggressive. The quartet realizes they need to secure the vacant lot permanently. To do this, they need money, a lot of it. And so they form their own corporation, a company dedicated to the protection of the rose and the opposition of Sombra. They name it the Tet Corporation, using the word from the high speech for a group bound by destiny. Using their knowledge of future events, a side effect of their travels through time, they are able to make shrewd investments and build a small fortune. They hire lawyers and business managers, ordinary people from our world who are unknowingly enlisted in a cosmic war. This part of the journey is a fascinating blend of high fantasy and modern urban reality. The Gunslingers must trade their revolvers for briefcases, their ancient quest for corporate strategy. It demonstrates that the battle for the tower is being fought on all levels of reality, in boardrooms as well as on blasted battlefields. The fight for the Rose of Keystone Earth is a microcosm of the larger war. It is a struggle to protect a small, beautiful, and fragile piece of magic in a world that is increasingly dominated by soulless, concrete, and corporate greed. The success of the Tet Corporation in saving the Rose is a major victory for the forces of the White, a crucial defensive action that helps to stabilize the tower and buy the heroes more time on their primary quest in Roland's world. As the journey progresses and the true nature of the multiverse begins to reveal itself, the quartet stumbles upon the most bizarre and reality-bending secret of all. They discover that their quest, their lives, their every struggle and triumph are being recorded. They are the main characters in a series of books, a story being written by a man on Keystone Earth, a horror novelist from the state of Maine named Stephen King. This revelation is a profound shock to the characters, and it fundamentally changes their understanding of their own existence. They are not simply